Hello everyone and welcome to the weekly edition of Daily News Simplified, wherein we take up the important articles for the UPSC preparation right from the Hindu newspaper and the entire week of Indian Express Explained section. Articles which have been taken up for today's discussion are displayed on the screen, and the time stamping for these articles along with the notes in PDF and Word format are given in the description box. So let us begin with the first article for the day. Dear aspirants, Raus IAS is going to conduct the mains revision classes for 2023, which will prepare you for the mains 23 examination. As you must be well aware that these classes have boosted the score of many IAS toppers. For example, Anandya Rashri, Pooja Jha, Namrata Chaube, and helped them to score a good rank in the top 100. As far as features of this program is concerned, so all the students and the participants are going to get 150 hours of revision classes that will cover all the important subjects, important themes in the question and answered format. Students will also get one-to-one mentorship in unlimited format. There will be a dedicated mains test series that will help you to simulate exam-like experience and revise your syllabus in the time-bound manner. This test series will also provide you the timely feedback which will help you to score even more. All the teachers taking the classes will be providing you the important and relevant notes which will be handy for you to revise in the last time. There will be 4 hours of classes every day between Monday to Friday. The teachers would include Baswa Upin for economics, Mr. Faizan Khan for ethics, Vaibhav Mishra for polity, Gaurav Tripathi for environment and geography, Ankit Kaul for international relations, Mr. Arun Bharadwaj for Science and Technology, Mr. Raja Kumar for Indian Society and Social Justice, Mr. Shashank Singh for your essay paper, and of course me, Jatin Bharadwaj, for your history section. In order to enroll in this program and to know more information, there's a link which is given in the description below. The program is going to start from 12th of this month. Thank you. This article of the Indian Express Explained section was published on 31st of May. According to this article, some of the European nations like France has started curbing the airplane emission. There is a growing clamor in Europe for a bigger crackdown on the private aviation sector. France has already announced that it is going to ban all short-haul domestic flights, which is first of a kind ban in the world. A month before, a Schiphol airport in the Amsterdam has already banned private jets as well as small business planes. Now, why they are taking this decision? They want to reduce down the carbon emission or the CO2 emission as well as other greenhouse gas emissions such as water vapor, which is emanating from the aviation sector. And according to these nations, private jets and the small business planes have more per capita emission with respect to the other commercial planes going for the long journeys. Recently, France has already banned those destinations which can be covered by the train journey in about 2.5 hours. For example, in India, you can hardly find a flight between Delhi to Agra. The reason is that distance between these two cities or from Delhi to Mathura can easily be covered by train within hours. So that is one of the reasons why Delhi to Agra flights are not easily available. The same case has been used in case of France also. Now the point is that this topic can easily be covered under the General Studies paper 3 with respect to the conservation, environmental pollution and environmental degradation. So with this under consideration, we are going to discuss whether this ban is going to be beneficial or not. And is this ban going to be replicated by other countries in future or not? Now the question is, the ban which they have put, is this beneficial or not? The aviation industry as of now only accounts for 2% of the CO2 emission and less than 2% of the other greenhouse emission. So from that perspective, just a fraction of planes, that too only in Europe, is not going to bring much of the difference. This ban would not bring any substantial change in the fight against the global warming because we are just talking about a fraction. 2% is coming from the CO2 emission across the world. We are just talking about Europe, and that too just one country. On the other hand, this ban might actually encourage people to use their personal vehicles, which are actually more polluting per capita. Ban on the commercial planes would be less beneficial than in comparison to the private jets. So government at this stage could look forward to ban more private jets rather than the commercial planes. Now the question arises that why such targeting of the private jets is there? Why Amsterdam has put such a ban? The number of private jets in European Union has increased by 64%. So the super rich people are now utilizing the private jets as the mode of their movement, which is emitting more and more CO2 and greenhouse gases per capita. Private jets are emitting 5 to 14 times, that is 1400% more pollution per passenger if we compare them to the commercial planes, and about 50 times, that is 5000% more than the trains which are running between two places. Now the point is why aviation pollution is a subject matter. Why are we concerned with this particular pollution? Now although its pollution is less, but the per capita emission is very high. Secondly, this sector is now growing at a very rapid pace. As we have talked about, that the private jet have already increased by 64% in the European Union. As far as non-CO2 emission is concerned, so it is 5% of the historical global warming. Just one sector, just one means of transportation is now achieving 5% of the global warming. On the other hand, emissions from the airline making international flights are not attributable to any particular country. So if a plane which is traveling from, let's say, Abu Dhabi to China is now traveling over India and polluting the air above India, now this is not being covered in any agreement, including the Paris Agreement of 2015, which talks about reducing down the CO2 emission. The next point is that the white stripes that comes out of the jet planes, which are called as contrails, have been inducing the formation of cirrus clouds that calls for the water vapor emission as well as creates more absorption of the incoming solar radiation. At the international standards, some of the initiatives have been taken place. The first one is the CORSIA. It stands for Carbon Offsetting and Reduction Scheme for International Aviation. It is to reduce down any emission over the 2020 level, which is going to be compensated by the airline industry through the investment in the carbon saving projects elsewhere. And the duration is going to be 2021 to 2035. In order to understand it through a simple example, assume that Vistara is running an international flight and Vistara is providing X amount of CO2 into the environment. Now, when Vistara is emitting X amount of CO2 in the environment, what Vistara will do is that they are going to put some money in a particular country, let's say that country where CO2 emission is high, but that country is poor. So it is a poor country. So Vistara is going to put some money in the hands of this poor country, which will reduce down its CO2 emission overall. So it is like offsetting the CO2 emission by this international airlines just because they are emitting particular level of CO2 through their transportation. Now this is going to increase the cost of flight, of course, but in the long term it is going to reduce down the overall emission being produced by these international flights. This CORSIA has been formulated by the International Civil Aviation Organization. The second is that the use of sustainable aviation fuels produced from the renewable resources such as biomass, algae or the waste material can well be substituted in comparison to the kerosene or the other fuels used by these flights. The third one is that they can demote the short duration flights across the world, which we have seen in the case of France. And the last one is that United Kingdom in 2021 had decided to bring airlines and the shipping industry under their carbon budgeting. Now, carbon budgeting is the budgeting created by the government. It's an annual budget where they decide that how much they are going to control the carbon emission in the economy, and funds are being allocated as per the budget created. With this discussion, please let us now move to the next article for the day. This article of the Indian Express Explained section was published on 31st of May and talks about the Supreme Court's judgment on the Article 299 of the Indian Constitution. The Supreme Court has recently held that the government, when entering into a contract under President's name, cannot claim immunity from the legal provisions and that contract under Article 299 of the Constitution. Now please understand this, that whenever a contract is signed between Government of India and any other entity, let's say a private firm, about any contract, here the Government of India is being represented by the President's name, that President of India has authorized XYZ activity. So whenever a claim is made by a particular entity on Government of India cannot claim immunity, that it was the President's act and not their act. Because President or the Governor in this case can only be represented in the symbolic manner and not directly. Under Chaturbhuj Vitthal Das Jasani versus Moreshwar Parashram and others 1954 case, Court has rightly addressed that there must be a definite procedure according to which contracts, that is the agreement signed between Government of India and the other entities, must be made by agents. And agents here means, of course, the bureaucrats who are acting on government's behalf, that is President's behalf. And it means that contracts which are outside the ambit of Article 299 cannot be enforced in the court of law. So if Government of India has signed any agreement where President or Governor is not involved, so those government agreements or the contract cannot be enforced as per the Article 299 and that particular entity cannot take the matter into the court. Now, as far as in-depth analysis is concerned, so we just have to understand the concept of Article 298 and 299. Beyond that, in this examination, matter will not be required. So before going to the 299, let us understand what 298 has to say. As per the part 12 of the Indian Constitution, Article 298 says that what is the power to carry on trade and other objects. So the executive power of the Union and of every state shall extend on carrying on any trade or the business or to the acquisitions, holding and disposal of the property, including the railway property, and making the contract for any purpose. So Government of India can sign a public-private partnership contract with, let's say, Tata Sons to construct any particular project. So recently the new parliament which was created where Tata was involved is based on the contract signed between Government of India and the Tata company. So that kind of acquisition, holding, disposal of the property can take place. Executive power of the Union on such a trade or a business or a contract is not with respect to which Parliament may make law, be subject in each state or the legislation by that state. So if Parliament can make a law with respect to any kind of such property, transaction, trade, then executive has nothing to do. Similarly, executive power of the state will not be required if state legislation can make a law on that. So if legislation has already created a law on a particular trade, transaction, acquisition, disposal, then executive action is not required. But Article 299 says that executive action can take place. So all the contracts made in exercise of the executive power, please understand this, that this is the executive power and not the legislative power. So if executive power of the union or of the state is expressed in the name of the president or in the name of the governor, then all such contracts, assurance of the property, in exercise of that particular power is executed on the behalf of, please understand this, this is very important. So it is on the behalf of the president and the governor by such person in such a manner as he, that is president or governor, may direct. So that person could be, let's say, the home minister, finance minister, or any particular IAS officer. Now, neither president nor governor shall be personally liable. So if there is any issue with respect to the contract, the contracting party, let's say Tata, cannot cannot file a complaint against the president or the governor because they were just the symbolic. Similarly, any person making any such contract on the behalf of president or the governor will not be liable for any kind of suit. So, Article 298 provides easy carry on trade on the executive order. Article 299 provides that such an order or contract should be on the behalf of president and the governor, and they are not liable for any kind of lawsuit. And they cannot be held personally liable for any kind of such contracts. With this discussion placed, let us now move to the next article for the day. This article of the Indian Express Explained section was published on 31st of May, which talks about Foucault pendulum. Now, context says that Foucault pendulum has been installed in the central foyer of India's new Parliament building in Delhi. The pendulum, which hangs from the skylight at the top of the Constitution Hall and signifies the integration of the idea of India with the idea of the cosmos. Now, this is what actually has been installed. As you can see on the screen, this is what the pendulum is. It is hanging from the roof. This is the Constitution Hall in the new Parliament building. Now, how this pendulum actually functions is going to be the discussion for today. Now, Foucault pendulum was created by the French scientist Léon Foucault, and it was created in the 19th century. It showcases an experiment. So it's not a machine, it's an experiment which proves that Earth is rotating on its axis. So without even observing Earth's rotation, we can easily tell that how Earth is rotating. So Earth rotates from west to east. Now, when the Foucault pendulum is suspended at the equator, now please understand this. So if this is your Earth and this is a particular equator at 0 degree, if this pendulum P is at equator, then the plane of oscillation, that is to and fro, will remain fixed relative to the Earth. But when it is at pole, let's say South Pole, so when the pendulum is stationed at pole, Earth's rotation will have the maximum effect. Now, as we all know that if this is point A and this is point B, the pendulum will go from point A to point B and again from point B to point A. If this is the straight line and it is fixed, this is what will observed at the equator. But in case of poles, from point A to point B, the pendulum will go in this manner. So this is the basic difference between Foucault pendulum. So as we go far away from the equator, this pendulum will create more an arc. Now, one which has been installed in the Parliament will take 49 hours, 59 minutes and 18 seconds to complete one round or one rotation. The more we go away from the equator, less time will be required to complete one rotation. So first such pendulum in India was actually installed at the Inter-University Center for Astronomy and Astrophysics situated in Pune in 1991. So such kind of preliminary pointers are very important for you. This particular Foucault pendulum at the Indian Parliament has been created by National Council of Science Museum located in Kolkata. So this is how a Foucault pendulum functions. As you can see, this pendulum is going in a rotational path and is changing the direction from north, south, east and west. And this is how the pendulum is going to function, which is located in the Indian Parliament. With this discussion placed, let us now move to the next article for the day. This article of the Indian Express Explained section was published on 3rd of June, that is yesterday, and talks about the possibility of using the salt caverns as the oil reserves for storing the strategic oil in India. Now, Government of India's owned Engineers India Limited is studying the prospects and the feasibility of developing the salt caverns based strategic oil reserves in the state of Rajasthan, where of course the salt content is high. You must have heard about certain salt lakes such as Didwana or Sambar. And this is in line with Government of India's objective of increasing the country's strategic oil storage capacity. So we are going to look into what this strategic oil capacity is, what is India's current status in this regard, why Government of India is looking into the salt caverns against the rock caverns which they are using as of now, and is this a sustainable proposal for future or not. This topic is extremely relevant for your General Studies Paper 1 under Geography and General Studies Paper 3 under the Environment. So the question is, what are the strategic petroleum reserves that we are envisaging? Well, strategic reserves are the stockpile. Okay, so this is something which has been stocked, and this is a stock of crude oil which is maintained by various countries including India. Why? In order to reduce down the shocks because of the supply disruption. What if tomorrow India's oil supply or oil imports fall to very low? Will India be able to supply? Will India be able to sustain for long? If oil imports are not there, how Indian economy is going to function? So for that matter, strategic reserves are kept, and these are known as SPR. As of now, India is currently holding 5.33 million tons of strategic reserves, which can only meet the demand of 9 days. So if tomorrow India's oil imports run dry, India will have only 9 days to survive. Such kind of strategic reserves fall under a particular special purpose vehicle, a separate entity created with the name of Indian Strategic Petroleum Reserve, ISPRL. This is a very important fact. You should remember this. Now the point is where these strategic reserves are located. So the existing are located in Mangaluru, Padur, which are in Karnataka, and the Visakhapatnam, which is in Andhra Pradesh. The two new locations are going to be at Chandikol in Odisha and Padur, another extension of 2.5 million tons. But overall, it is not going to even touch the 15 million tons target for the government. So what government is looking is that they can replace the rock-based caverns with the salt-based caverns. Now, rock-based caverns are the mined underground cavities. As you can see in this particular image, this is a particular area of a mine. So this is a rock mine which has been extracted. So rocks have been extracted, and extracting rock is an expensive activity. So in this regard, yes, we can say that rock extraction is an expensive activity. Hence, the rock-based caverns or the storage area is very expensive. So these are created in the solid rock deep underground using conventional mining techniques like shafts, ramps, drifts, forming cavities in the granite. So this is of course an expensive activity. So what we are looking as an alternative is salt based. But why? Rock caverns require expensive mining of rocks, while salt caverns are not looking for any kind of mining. We are just focusing on the process of solution. So once water is being pumped into or drained into a particular geological formation of salt, that salt will be dissolved in the water, creating brine. So salt water will be created, and this salt water or brine will be pumped out. What will happen? We will have space to store crude oil. So here, no expensive granite extraction will be required. It is a very inexpensive and fast process to create storage space. So as you can see on the screen, these are the white formation of the salt. So if water is being pumped into these caves or caverns, they can easily be available into the brine, and this brine will be extracted out and oil will be filled into. These brines can easily be created in the state of Rajasthan, where salt content in the soil and the rock formation is very high. Now the point is, what are the advantages? It is simpler, faster and less cost expensive. It is naturally well sealed. It can be easily used for rapid injection and the extraction of the oil. These caverns have less or extremely low oil absorption, so the wastage of oil will not be there. They can easily be created entirely from the surface, so in-depth or deep mining is not required. Across the globe, they have been used to store liquid fuels as well as the natural gas for various purposes. They are considered suitable for storing the compressed air and even the hydrogen. So it's a win-win situation for all kind of fuels that Government of India is using. And if that happens to be true, it is going to be the cost-effective manner of storing the strategic fuel for India. With this discussion, please let us move to the next article for the day. This article of the Hindu newspaper appeared on the Science in Tech page, and it is based on a particular research conducted by IIT on the falling groundwater and what role does the annual rainfall play in recharging the groundwater. The context says that the projected increase in the groundwater used for the irrigation can cancel out the benefits of the increased rainfall from the warming winter. Now see, because of the global warming, the overall temperature of the globe is increasing. When the temperature increases, the moisture content in the soil also increases. This moisture content will definitely increase in the overall rainfall across the globe, and those areas where the rainfall is already high, such as the monsoon receiving regions such as India, are going to receive high rainfall or high precipitation under monsoon. So this is a good sign. As far as global warming is concerned, it should not be the one, but for the agriculture as a whole, it is a good sign. But the replenishment of the groundwater is not sufficient, because the utilization of the groundwater has far exceeded what the rainfall can actually recharge. So the groundwater recovery is less than what rainfall can actually bring. This topic is important for your Geography in General Studies Paper 1 Mains examination and the environmental degradation in your General Studies Paper 3. So the research conducted by IIT Gandhinagar has been on the basis of the satellite observation of the groundwater, and this is based on the GRACE. Now what is GRACE? GRACE stands for Gravity Recovery and the Climate Experience. So the gravity across the globe has been used as a parameter to understand what is the status in the groundwater recharge across the world. So as per the study, the projected increase in the monsoon will be insufficient if there is continuous use of groundwater at the current level of irrigation. Forget about the future, because in future the irrigation is going to increase as of now. The caution or the warning that they have given is that the increase in the rainfall can only help to recover 50% of the groundwater. So it stands like this. If today we have 100 liters of groundwater, only 50 liters can be recharged from the rainfall. Tomorrow, if we have, let's say, 150 liters, then again only 50 liters can be recharged, because the rainfall more or less will remain the same. Hence, we have to look into this matter. When there is continuous fall in the groundwater, ultimately we are going to end up depending on the rainfall, because 50 liters will fall through the rainfall and 50 liters will be utilized through the irrigation. What will be left for the industry and for the domestic purpose? What we are going to drink? So that remains a matter of concern. And in the last 2 decades, what we have done is that we have discriminately exhausted the irrigation water to a larger extent. Between 2002 to 2022, about 95% of India's groundwater has depleted in the northern Indian territory, especially the Ganga-Yamuna. And this has increased the frequency of floods as well as the droughts. And this is coupled with the global warming that has increases the frequency of floods and the droughts. So one year we have excessive rainfall, the other year we don't have even a drop. Warming climate or the global warming has also increased the amount of summer monsoon rainfall that has increased both flooding as well as drought in the other areas. Summer monsoon rainfall, which is projected to increase by 6 to 8%, will recover the lost water, but only up to 50%. So the use of groundwater from the deeper aquifers, which is a very, very warning sign, from the Indo-Gangetic plains will increase the hardships in the coming year. So what should we do? So recovery of the depleted groundwater will be insufficient. Hence we should try to conserve it. There is a crucial need to restrict the unsustainable groundwater use, and apart from that, these are the way forwards that we should look into. The first one is sustainable use of groundwater. Until and unless excessive water is required in a particular crop, it should not be used. Extension of the canal system, because canal system can provide the alternate way to reduce down the burden of the groundwater. So tube well can be replaced with a canal system. Interlinking of the river projects, for example, we have done in the case of Cane Betwa, and such kind of interlinking of the projects will provide alternative sources of irrigation water. More use of drought resistance crops which require less amount of water. Less use of water intensive crops such as paddy or sugarcane. Research and development in the field of high yielding varieties, so more yield per less drop of water. Apart from that, government can also look into providing judicious minimum support price, because minimum support price or fair and remuneration price has also provided a skewed level of agricultural practices and crop intensity. So more focus has been given to wheat, rice and the sugarcane because of the remuneration that a farmer get in these three crops, and they are very water intensive one. Focus should also go to the legumes or the pulses because they require less water, plus they also provide nitrogen fixation to the soil, which actually helps in retaining low level of fertilizers. With this discussion placed, let us now move to the last article for the day. Now the last article for today's discussion is taken from the Hindu newspaper Frequently Asked Questions section. This says that why India is rethinking in its Anaemia policy. Anaemia policy stands for elimination the anemia across the India's population, especially the women and children. The context says that the question arises that why anemia estimates are being shifted from National Family Health Survey, which is as of now conducting the survey that how many people in India are suffering from anemia, to a new survey which is known as DBS or Diet and Biomarker Survey Level 1. This new survey is now being adopted by the Government of India, and it is going to collect individual data on food and nutrition which they are intaking at different age groups in different states and the union territories. So the survey is going to ask people, what are they doing? What food are they taking? What nutrients are they taking on the daily basis at different age group? And with that nutrient and the age group combination, they are going to find out whether they are actually anemic or not. Now the question arises that why government is shifting from National Family Health Survey to Diet and Biomarker Survey. The reason is that some of the experts have questioned the efficacy of the current method that is being used to estimate the hemoglobin level in the blood. Hemoglobin level shows whether a person is anemic or not. The reason for that suspicion is that the danger of anemia being overdiagnosed in India. It means that the data which National Family Health Survey has conducted shows that there are more number of anemic people in India than there actually are, because they are using the World Health Organization's cutoff for hemoglobin. Now, according to the World Health Organization, anemia in children under the age of 5 and the pregnant women shows less hemoglobin level if there is less than 110 gram per liter at the sea level. If the woman is non-pregnant, anemia condition which shows that the hemoglobin is less than 120 gram per liter. So this is World Health Organization condition. This is a very high standards, and it does not meet the demand what India's population has. So according to the expert, this condition of World Health Organization is not suitable for India. They have a high cutoff point which depends on the age, gender, physiological status, altitude and even the other factors. So India's age factor is different. India's gender conditions are different. Our food habits are different. Our working conditions are different. We are working in a humid, hot climate. We are working at a low altitude. We cannot compare ourselves with that of the Europeans. And there are many other factors like social factors. So a woman in India has different dietary habits than the women in, let's say, America. So that should be taken as a consideration instead of just going by World Health Organization's criteria to define what an anemic person is. Currently, we are using a method which is a very weak method. We are using a drop of capillary blood that oozes out from a finger. That you must have seen that how a finger drop of blood is being taken. Instead of that, the correct method that experts have suggested should be the venous blood sampling. Now, what is venous blood? Venous blood is a deoxygenated blood which travels from peripheral blood vessels through the venous system into the right atrium of the heart. So if that blood is taken, it can provide us the right or the accurate amount of hemoglobin level present in the blood. Now the question arises, will the dietary survey or the new survey that Government of India is conducting is going to help? The Health Ministry says that this new diet and biomarker survey 1 will define food and nutrient adequacy by collecting individuals' dietary intake. So every person who is going to be conducted under the survey, who is going to be questioned under the survey, will be asked with respect to what they are eating and what is the nutrient content. This will be grouped into different ages at different states and the union territories. So it will provide a macro level of nutrient data in India, which is as of now not available. This study will also provide the nutrient composition data on cooked food and non-cooked food. So every day we have the combination of cooked and non-cooked food. So in non-cooked food we have salads, we have milk items, we have fruits, and that is going to be divided in various regions across the time. And this is the first time when such survey is going to be conducted. The problem with the existing National Health Family Survey is that they just ask a question on the population, on the health, nutrition for India, each states and the union territories. But that does not provide us the data that how much a person and what a person is actually eating. One limitation of National Family Health Survey is that it only provides us that whether the new programs that government is launching in a particular area is beneficial or not. So as far as policy making is concerned, National Family Health Survey is good. However, individual targeting of the health with respect to anemia can only be possible in a good form using the DABS Survey 1. In the last, we are going to look into that what causes anemia. Now, anemia is a blood disorder. So as per the World Health Organization, it is a condition in which the number of red blood cells or the hemoglobin concentration in the blood is lower than the normal. Now the normal that has already been discussed with respect to pregnant women, children and non-pregnant women. Hemoglobin, as we all know, on the basis of the basic biology, is needed to carry the oxygen in the blood. If there are less number of red blood cell, low hemoglobin, there will be a decreased capacity of the blood to carry oxygen. Less oxygen to the tissues simply proves that a person will go through the fatigue, weakness, dizziness, shortness of the breath, among others. The basic reason is the deficiency of iron in the daily food habits. So, why anemia is important? It is related to the morbidity and the mortality in the pregnant women and the children who are under 5. So, providing them the right iron and folic supplements is important, which is also part of government's program. The study of anemia is useful to monitor the progress of reproductive health among women. If a woman has right amount of hemoglobin present in her blood, she is going to go through a good reproductive health. And the last one, prevalence of high anemia shows physically weak workforce, which is not a good sign for a growing demographic dividend like India. So that is one of the reasons why India is concerned about anemia as a disease. This is the reason why India is conducting Anemia Mukt Bharat program, and now this is going to be based on a new survey to target the right number of population. With this discussion in place, we have now come to the end of today's Daily News Simplified. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more such updates.